talk to you about how you can get started producing your own music right now. Hello, my name is Ricc. People mainly know me as Roux, which is the name under which I've been releasing music. In this video, I will show you the steps that it took me to get from 0 streams to over 100,000 streams on streaming platforms right now, 3 years into my career. And I want to show you the journey that it took me to get here today. So let's get right into it. First of all, if you want to be a producer, the first thing that I recommend is you need to learn at least one musical instrument. You don't need to become an expert, but you do need to know some basics. With that being said, you can start with one, but I recommend you learn as many as you can because knowing as many instruments as possible is going to help you diversify your tracks and be able to explore more sounds than you would otherwise. Aside from that, I also recommend that you learn the very basics of music theory because it's going to help give your tracks so much more depth and potential. Okay, so with that being said, let's get into the very first step that you need to do to get started creating your music. The very first thing you'll need is something that you can record with. So you are going to need a computer or a laptop with a digital audio workstation, a DAW. The one I started with was GarageBand. Later I moved on to Logic, and that is my personal preference, but you can do your own research and see what else they have out there and which one you would be most comfortable with. There is Fruity Loops, Ableton, there's Pro Tools, which I do not recommend if you're first starting off. It's not so easy to use. And again, there's GarageBand and Logic, which I use. Step number 2. The next thing you need to set is a budget for your equipment. You don't need a lot of equipment. You don't need a big budget. The very first thing I recommend you buy is an audio interface. You can get a cheap interface and you can already get started recording. You don't need anything fancy. It's going to work perfect for what you need. After that, it'll come down to your budget and your genre. You can then decide whether you're going to need a guitar more or a MIDI keyboard. In my case, I got a guitar first because the genre that I wanted to work in was indie rock. In your case, it'll depend on what genre you want to work on. If you're going to work on hip hop and sampling, then I recommend you get a MIDI keyboard. But if you're going to work on indie, then I recommend you get a guitar first because it is a more guitar driven genre. And 2, a MIDI keyboard is going to make your life easier, but essentially it's a controller. You can do everything that you do with a MIDI keyboard right on your laptop. You don't necessarily need it. I started with a budget of $300 back when I was in college. So $300 was a lot of money to me back then. And it still kind of is. And 2, $300 went a longer way than they do today. I spent my budget on a microphone, a MIDI keyboard, and this beautiful guitar that I got off Craigslist for $150. I don't know if you'd be able to get a deal like this today. This is a Mexican Fender Telecaster, and I think I got a pretty good deal. In step 3, record and record and record as much as you can. Eventually, you're going to land on a melody, you're going to land on a riff, a chord progression, which is going to become a full song. So play with your instruments and get creative. My very first song called My Head Hurts and I Hate You. I had a very simple chord progression that I'm going to show you. And I had this idea that this is going to be my first single. I needed to be energetic, catchy, and I needed to be very true to myself to show people who I am and what I'm coming with. So that is what I focused on while producing and writing this whole song. This is the chord progression I had. D major, B minor, G major, A major. It's a standard chord progression. And again, I knew I wanted a lot of energy. I knew I wanted to come in fast. So what I did was just speed it up. So that is the idea that I had for the first song, and I decided to kick it off with a strong drum set like this. So I wanted it to hit you in the face, so we go right into the verse with the vocals and the strong guitars coming in. Walk by your house, just wondering where. And at this point, I only had a MIDI keyboard. I didn't have a live bass, so I recorded the bass with MIDI. You can listen to it here. It sounds a little weird because it's not real, but I tried to play it so that it would sound as real as possible. Oh, there, swimming inside his own mind, empty, they have been through. When I produce my music, I always like to have a different aspect that's going to make the song stand out a little bit and maybe make it a little more memorable to those who hear it. So in this case, what I did was slow down the tempo, cut it in half, and have this slow section right after the very first verse. Listen to those back vocals. Driving down the road. And I added some strings here to match that moment. Right back into running for the second verse. Listen to those back vocals again. I am quite alright. And we go into a beautiful pause right before the hook. Around the house, so my head hurts and I've been hating you for quite some time. Into the solo. When it comes to songs, it's important to realize the motions that you're going. You gotta go up and you gotta go down. You gotta take people on that journey. So in this case, again, I start fast, then I go through the slow section, then I go fast again and bring it up to this peak of the solo, and then I bring it back down for the bridge, which you'll realize here, to then hit them in the face with the last hook of the song. The bass, keeping the energy. And then you bring in the drums to build that tension and then release it in this hook. Again, all of these guitar parts were recorded with this $150 guitar, and everything else was done here on the MIDI keyboard and on a cheap mic. And that is the end of the song. When it comes to the lyrics, it's, in my opinion, all about being genuine and talking about things that pertain to your life experience. As a songwriter, you need to learn to amplify the emotions and experiences that you go through so that you can relay them onto a song and make it relatable to everybody else. Everybody's gone through a breakup. Everybody's had somebody that they like that didn't necessarily like them back and instead liked somebody else. We've all gone through those experiences. So in my case, it's from a real life experience, and you can hear it in my voice with the way I sing it. And I think that's something very important. Whether you're the artist or you're producing an artist, you need to bring that out of them. Somebody might be able to sing great, but you need to feel that emotion from their voice. So that is what I recommend from a songwriter standpoint. And when it comes to recording styles, I pretty much am self-taught. So everything that you see on this session and everything I record has been me just playing around and seeing what sounds best, whether I should stand this close to a microphone or if I should stand this close, if I should sing with a lot of passion on my voice, kind of like I do here. Those are just the kind of things you find out by experimenting and using your DAW and using your instruments, just playing with them as much as you can and start to tune your ear to figure out what sounds good and what sounds bad. Another huge important aspect of vocals is having great harmonies and back vocals. Those are the type of things that listeners don't necessarily notice right away when they listen to a song for the first time, but it makes the song feel so much fuller and with so much more depth. And that's why I put so much emphasis on showing you the vocals isolated as we went through the session. All right, and now step 4. Step 4 is once you've recorded your track, you're very happy with it, it sounds like a great demo, you need to find a great sound engineer to mix it for you and master it so that it's ready to go on streaming platforms, radio, licensing on TV, anything. You need to have a great quality sound engineer that can make that track sound 10 times better. Keep in mind though, you're still the producer, so you get to tell the sound engineer what you want that track to sound like. So once you get that first draft delivered, listen to it carefully with a producer ear and make sure that it sounds exactly what you want it to sound like, and work with the engineer until it does. Here on the same step, I also recommend you hire a good artist, graphic designer to create a artwork for your single, Spotify Canva, and any promo content you might need. I also recommend you start creating social media content so that you can start promoting this song. Step number 5. Once you have your mix and master track, your artwork, your Spotify Canva, you can go ahead and distribute your song. I use TuneCore. There are many platforms you can use. TuneCore, DistroKid, you can use CD Baby, and I'm sure there's more. It's just a distribution platform. There probably aren't that many differences from one to another. Now that you've distributed your track, it's time to pitch it. Create your Spotify for Artists account and claim your artist profile. Once you've done this, you're going to be able to pitch your single before it's released for Spotify editorial playlists. Why would you want to be added to one of these playlists? Plainly put, the reach. These playlists have a huge amount of following. I've been featured in a couple of them, and I can tell you it makes a huge difference, and it helps you get discovered by fans. Now, don't limit yourself to only Spotify editorial playlists. You also want to do some research on user-created playlists that have organic following that aren't bots. If you go on a playlist that has bots for listeners and you start getting a lot of streams for those bots, the Spotify algorithm won't be able to know who your real listeners are. The benefit with Spotify knowing who your real listeners are is that then it can recommend you to other fans that might have similar tastes and might like your music. And that is what you want to break through when you release music. You want to break into the Spotify algorithm so that it can take your songs and promote them for you. On algorithmic playlists like Release Radar or any Discover playlist that they might have, now that you've pitched your music for playlists, it's time to go on social media, go to your friends and family and promote your song. Tell them when it's going to be released, when they can pre-save it, and tell them to tell their friends. And that is essentially the step-by-step guide that helped me get from 0 streams to over 100,000 streams today. This is a rinse and repeat step-by-step process. Once you finish the first song, move on to the next, and then on to the next, and on to the next. The more songs you have out there, the more listeners are going to be able to find you, the more streams you're going to get. Now, I do recommend that from one release to the next, you make sure that you diversify and you don't sound all the same throughout. And that is pretty much what I have for you today. I keep following it myself. I keep releasing music, producing music, and I can't wait to show you what's next. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you on the next one.